Coming up on Arirang News, South Korea starts paying out a round of pandemic relief funds to all but those in the highest income brackets. Most adults will get 250,000 won, a little over $200. Details now on how to apply. From today, the social distancing rules in South Korea will be eased slightly to allow bigger gatherings for those who are vaccinated. As many as 8 relatives will be able to meet for the Chuseok holiday later this month. And President Moon Jae-in says South Korea will seek a gradual transition to a new virus prevention system. That'll be made possible by vaccines, he says, with 40% of the country now fully vaccinated. It's 5:00 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. The South Korean government has started paying out its 5th round of pandemic relief funds today. This is for everyone except those in the top 20% of incomes, and for most people it'll be 250,000 won, a little over $200. Lee Eun-jin has the details on how to apply.
Starting Monday, people in the bottom 4/5 income bracket, which accounts for roughly 88% of the population, can start applying for the 5th round of COVID-19 emergency relief funds. They will each get 250,000 Korean won, roughly $216. Eligibility is determined by each household's national health insurance payments. Foreigners with a permanent residency visa and those married to Koreans can also apply. Starting 9 a.m. on Monday, individuals can check their eligibility and apply for the funds on the National Health Insurance Service website or through online banking applications. In order to avoid overcrowding, the first week of fund applications are open on designated days based on the last digit of the applicant's birth year. So those born in a year ending in 1 or 6, such as those born in 1976, are eligible to apply on Monday, 2 or 7 on Tuesday, and so on. Recipients can choose whether to get a local cash voucher, a prepaid card, or have the payment put onto their credit or debit cards. After this first week, online applications will be open without birth year restrictions. From next week, people can also apply in person at their registered district community centers. Registration runs until the 29th of October. The payment will be given a day after the application, and recipients have until the end of the year to use the funds. These funds can only be used at most small neighborhood businesses like traditional markets, local supermarkets, restaurants, and cafes. They cannot be used at department stores, large discount stores, entertainment establishments, or on delivery apps. Any funds not used by December 31st will be returned to the state. Lee Eun-jin, Arirang News.
For the Chuseok holiday coming up in a couple of weeks, if you're planning to put out a table of food as part of the traditional ancestral rites, it's going to cost a bit more this year. According to the Seoul Agro Fisheries and Food Corporation, the price of the food and drink for the ritual this year will cost around 280,000 won if you buy it at a big grocery store. That's around $245 US, and an increase from last year of 6%. At traditional markets, the cost will be up to about 5%. However, the data show that the traditional markets will be about 20% cheaper than the alternative. The main reason for the increase is the rise in prices of fruit and meat, but households may end up spending less anyway because of the social distancing rules. The price of salt in South Korea was up last month by the most in 9 years, pushing up the price of other food products. According to Korean Statistical Information Service, the price of salt in August jumped by almost 15% compared to a year earlier. In turn, the price of snack cakes and cookies were up around 11% and processed meat products by 8%. Experts say the price rise in processed foods was caused by more expensive ingredients and higher global oil prices. The prices of farm and fishery goods last month also rose by about 8% on year. Eggs were up about 55%, spinach by around 35%, and pork by 11%. South Korea's LG Electronics has been named the brand with the best French door refrigerators by Consumer Reports. Consumer Reports said LG's models got the highest marks in several aspects, including temperature and noise control. LG said its rating was helped by the inverter linear compressor, a key component of the fridge that enhances energy efficiency. Time now for an in-depth look at the market news on this Monday, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Yang Chuseok, professor of economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Professor Yang, good afternoon. Thanks for coming on today.
Happy to be here.
Well, let's start with stocks on Wall Street, which are sitting near record highs. On Monday, of course, the markets will be closed for Labor Day, but some investors were a little spooked by the jobs report, showing only about a third of the expected number of jobs were added last month. What's the story in the global markets?
Right, that's basically the biggest news in the global market right now. The U.S. August unemployment report, which came out on Friday, the expectations were that the U.S. created about 720,000 jobs in August, but it turned out that there were only about 255,000 jobs created. So U.S. lost about 22 million jobs since the coronavirus began, but there had been a steady recovery in jobs, but it's still about 5.3 million jobs down from the pre-coronavirus levels. Now, Fed had indicated during the Jackson Hole meeting that if the job recovery proceeds on trend, then tapering would begin sometime this year. The market has interpreted that statement as saying announcement in September and reduction in actual purchases of bonds to begin in December. But because there has been such shock in the number of jobs created for August, now no one's really sure when the tapering will start. The lack of job growth is attributed to the spread of the Delta variant. Those who are working from home, the numbers grew, and job growth showed most softness in the leisure and hospitality industries. That's mostly face-to-face services. And another problem with the United States is that U.S. vaccination has slowed and perhaps even hit a wall. People in states who supported President Trump are now refusing to take vaccines, and they're taking ivermectin instead, which is a deworming medication for livestock as cure for COVID-19. So the vaccination seems to be hitting a wall as well. So we see some states doing very well, some states doing terribly in terms of controlling the coronavirus, and that may show up in the economic recovery numbers eventually. Right now, both of these types of states are doing well, but if the coronavirus spreads more in these non-vaccinated states, we may see some big changes and differences between state growth levels. Perhaps reflecting that, but the stock market seems to have shrugged off the employment report somewhat, while S&P did fall on Friday by 0.2%, and S&P only fell by 0.03%, and NASDAQ actually gained 0.2% on Friday after the employment report. For the week, Dow fell by 0.2%, S&P gained by 0.6%, NASDAQ gained by 1.6%. In Europe, DAX, CAC, and FTSE all fell on Friday, but are gaining today in early trading. Asian markets, they rose last week overall. Shanghai and Hang Seng had slight declines on Friday, but Nikkei rose on Friday as well. And all three of these markets seems to be shrugging off the employment report as well. They're all rising today.
And investors here in Korea watching all of that, and today a fairly muted session in the local market. The Kospi hovering around the 3,200 mark. The Kosdaq down slightly. Fairly low trading volume compared to recent sessions. Tell us about the domestic market.
Okay, well, Kospi rose most of last week. It did fall on Wednesday, but it shrugged it off, and it rose today. The big news in the last couple of trading days is that foreigners have returned to Kospi market since last week, and that's leading the market rise that we've seen since the last week. And foreigners are buying Samsung Electronics. Samsung Electronics had stocks at least have been lackluster through the coronavirus, but there's some anticipation that perhaps Samsung Electronics stock prices will finally rise as much as some of the other spectacular rises that we've seen in some of the Korean stocks during the coronavirus. It ended today at 3,203.33. It rose by 0.07%. Individuals sold, institutions and foreigners bought. Kosdaq, it rose all last week, but it declined very slightly today. It ended today at 1,052.96. It fell by 0.08%. For Kosdaq, individuals bought, institutions and foreigners sold.
And if we could talk about virtual assets for a minute, Professor. Bitcoin's back above 50,000 and the price of Ethereum's more than doubled since July. Perhaps both of these coins getting a boost since last week, partly because of the jobs report, maybe indicating that tapering by the Fed might be pushed back. But get us up to speed. What's happening in the crypto space?
Okay, well, Bitcoin hit a low of $29,790 in July 20, but it has been making a comeback. Other virtual coins have done that as well. We're just looking at Bitcoin as an example, and now it nearly gained twice the value since the low of July 20. It ended yesterday at $51,810. Now, tapering, the delay in tapering has something to do with it, I think. But when the prices started rising in late July, we were still expecting tapering to be earlier rather than later. So tapering must not be the whole story. Then why is the value of these virtual currencies rising? Well, some of the reasons can be attributed to, first, rising inflation. There are still a lot of people who believe that virtual coins, because they have a fixed supply, act as a counterpart and hedge against inflation. And second, rising acceptance by some financial institutions as means of exchange and means of investment. So you have a lot of financial institutions now actively participating in the virtual coin markets. Third, the structure of ownership on these virtual coins, a lot of it was always owned by very few, and these few, by buying or selling, had a very large effect on prices. So not only the psychological level of the market overall, but the ownership structure tends to favor wild swings in prices. And fourth, the negative effect from Chinese crackdown seems to be over. There has been evidence that mining for these coins has returned to pre-Chinese crackdown levels. It may not be done in China, but it's been mining in increased mining in some other countries. And paradoxically enough, these mining increase supply, but also increases confidence in the Bitcoins and other virtual coins. And there's been more diverse use of cryptocurrencies, not just Bitcoins, but other coins. Some companies are now set up as banks using cryptocurrency. They lend and borrow in cryptocurrencies, but they lie outside the financial regulatory and monetary system. So more central banks are worried that customers may get caught in scams, or they may lose all their savings if these businesses go out of business because they're not covered by the country's financial regulatory system or deposit insurance. There's been more use of so-called stable currencies whose value is tied to U.S. dollars by a fixed rate, and these at least are designed not to fluctuate in value as much as if you compare it to U.S. dollars, and that seems to be catching popularity as well. And this discussion on central bank digital coins, where central banks may issue digital coins, may be making digital coins overall, virtual money, more acceptable to regular people.
And this week, Professor, we'll have September's report on the economy from the Korea Development Institute, also the ECB rate decision on Thursday, and of course waiting to see what happens when Wall Street reopens on Tuesday. Just briefly before we go, what's on your radar in the week ahead?
Okay, for Korea this week we have July international payments numbers, Bank of Korea financial market trend report, and money and credit policy report. And from Ministry of Economy and Finance, monthly government finance report. And for the United States, the August producers price index, which may give us better idea on possible inflation, and U.S. oil reserve for August.
All right, we'll be looking to hear your thoughts about all of that later in the week. Thank you, Professor, for sharing your insights with us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
South Korea has had more than 1,000 new cases of COVID-19 every day since early July, and frequently more than 2,000. From today, though, the distancing measures have been adjusted to allow bigger gatherings for people who are vaccinated. Also, restaurants in the Seoul area can open until 10 p.m., an hour later than before. These measures will be in place for the next month. Kim Yo-sun reports.
From Monday, extended social distancing measures are in place in a bid to try and rein in COVID-19 outbreaks across South Korea ahead of the Chuseok holiday. This time, the country's health authorities say the measures have been extended for 4 weeks.
From September 6th to Sunday, October 3rd, the revised distancing measures will run for 4 weeks, which is longer than the usual 2-week period, considering the Chuseok holiday.
There are, however, a few revisions to the previous measures. For the metropolitan area, which is under level 4, up to 6 people can meet, even after 6 p.m. if the party includes 4 fully vaccinated individuals. In level 3 areas, groups of 8 can meet if at least half are fully vaccinated. Businesses such as coffee shops, restaurants, PC rooms, and singing rooms under level 4 can stay open for an extra hour until 10 p.m. However, bars and clubs must remain shut. Authorities have also announced special antivirus guidelines for the upcoming Chuseok holiday. For 7 days from September 17th to September 23rd, family gatherings of up to 8 people are allowed as long as 4 members are fully vaccinated. And in-person visits are allowed at nursing hospitals and nursing homes for 2 weeks from September 13th to September 26th, but only if booked in advance. Despite the extension from Monday, more students in South Korea will be able to attend in-person classes. The country's health and educational authorities have eased attendance cap restrictions at schools, even in areas that are under the toughest level 4 distancing. In such areas, the cap will increase to 2/3 for middle school students and to half or the entire student body for high school students. First and second grade elementary students, as well as senior high school students, will be able to attend offline classes every day. Half of the total student body from 3rd to 6th graders in elementary schools will be able to join in-person classes. In areas under lower-level distancing rules, all schools can resume in-person classes as long as the COVID-19 situation is manageable. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in says South Korea will work to devise a new virus prevention system as the 4th wave of the virus gets under control. Speaking at a meeting with his top aides Monday, Moon thanked the public for their active participation in the vaccine campaign, noting that over 40% of the population has been fully vaccinated.
백신 접종률이 높아지는 만큼 코로나 상황이 진정되어 나가면 방역과 일상을 조화시킬 수 있는 새로운 방역 체계로의 점진적인 전환을 모색할 수 있을 것입니다.
There's been growing speculation in South Korea that the government may speed up discussions on a transition to living with COVID-19. President Moon said the government will do its best to further normalize everyday life, such as easing restrictions for those fully vaccinated. The president also said the government will minimize inconveniences in applying for relief payments and ensure their swift distribution in the hope that they provide a little bit of comfort to those who are suffering. As vaccine rollout picks up speed in South Korea, a vaccination center in Goyang City is offering the Janssen vaccine for those who want to get inoculated right away. To get it, you just have to be over 30 years old, and undocumented foreigners just need to show their passport. Jang Tae-hyun has more.
Local governments across South Korea are ramping up their vaccination campaigns. At the Goyang City Vaccination Center in Gyeonggi-do Province, foreigners gather to get the single-shot Janssen vaccine.
But I'm feeling good, no stress, very convenient, so I'm happy to take vaccine.
Both locals and foreigners over the age of 30 can get the Janssen vaccine from September 6th until September 18th. Foreigners, even those without visas or documentation, just need a passport. There are foreign language instructions displayed at the venue, and Mongolian and Russian translators are on duty. This center in Goyang City is open from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. from Monday to Saturday. Meanwhile, the country reported 1,375 daily COVID-19 cases on Monday, with 70% of those coming from the capital region. And outside the capital, 21 students from a middle school in Gwangyang, Jeollanam-do province, have tested positive in the past 2 days. Authorities advise students, their families, and staff to get tested for the virus and to avoid travel. The government says it's considering ways to return to normal step by step. But right now, its priority is curbing the number of infections. Chang Tae-hyun, Arirang News.
The U.S. is seeing a rapid resurgence in coronavirus cases, with the daily death toll rising to around 1,500. As of Monday, the average number of deaths per day was 1,550, the highest since March. And the average number of cases per day was more than 160,000. To bring those numbers down, the U.S. will start offering booster shots from September 20th, using only the Pfizer vaccine for now. Those plans come as the G20 health ministers meeting in Rome over the weekend agreed to seek a fairer distribution of vaccines in the so-called Rome Pact. The South Korean government says the United States has confirmed that it has no intention of paring down its troop presence on the peninsula. An official at Seoul's foreign ministry said Monday that the two countries share a firm understanding when it comes to the role of and need for USFK. This comes amid speculation that the U.S. might reduce its presence here because the draft of a defense budget in Congress omits the lower limit lawmakers had put on the number of American troops stationed in South Korea. But sources familiar with the situation in Congress said the clause had only been added to prevent the Trump administration specifically from pulling troops out, something that is not a concern under President Biden. With Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga soon to step down, it's looking like his replacement will likely be Taro Kono. He previously served as Japan's foreign minister and its defense minister, and is now Minister of Administrative Reform. With a presidential election coming up in South Korea early next year, it seems unlikely that the two countries will be able to do much in the meantime to improve their ties. Yoon Jung-min reports.
The latest poll shows Japan's Administrative Reform Minister Taro Kono is the most popular candidate to succeed Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga, who has announced that he will resign. A poll by Yomiuri Shimbun reported Monday that Kono has an approval rating of 23%, just ahead of former Defense Minister Shigeru Ishiba with 21%. Former Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida had 12% support. The poll was conducted over the weekend on over 1,142 eligible voters. Another recent poll by Kyodo News also showed Kono topping the list with over 31% support, followed by Ishiba with over 26%. Seoul-Tokyo ties have shown little sign of improving under Suga over a series of historical and territorial issues. With uncertainty surrounding the LDP leadership race and South Korea's presidential race slated for next year, it is possible that bilateral issues could be put on hold for a while.
So I think we're probably going to have to wait until after the South Korean presidential election. And at that point, we can see the political stability in Japan. And there might be an appetite for more risk-taking and a bit more visionary leadership on both sides. But at this point, I think it's going to be very, very, very risk-averse.
Watchers say bilateral ties could become even sour if a hardline candidate is elected as the next prime minister. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Germany will be holding an historic election on September 26th, replacing Angela Merkel as chancellor. And that election will also see its first Korean-German candidate for the Bundestag, the German parliament. Running for the Social Democratic Party, 34-year-old Lee Jae-won will be seeking to represent the 1st District of Aachen in North Rhine-Westphalia, Germany's largest state. Candidate Lee said in an interview with South Korea's Yonhap News that she aims to bring about social equality, especially when it comes to education. Lee Jae-won was elected to the Aachen City Council in 2014 and was re-elected in 2020, mainly working on traffic policy. The Bundestag could be a tough race, though, because her main opponent is the incumbent, representing Germany's Conservative Party. South Korea is holding a wide range of events for tomorrow's 2nd annual International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies. The Foreign Ministry on Tuesday will hold an international forum on air pollution, available online. The Environment Ministry this month on social media is hosting what it's calling a race event online and a contest to sing a campaign song, while a number of local governments are hosting forums and talk shows. The occasion will be celebrated also at UN headquarters in New York and at the UN Environment Program in Nairobi. September 7th was designated the Day of Clean Air at the UN General Assembly in 2019. The idea was proposed by South Korean President Moon Jae-in at the UN Climate Action Summit. And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.